AAA game characters today are the best they've ever looked. Santa Monica Studio is one of the pioneers in pushing the limits in game character development. From their storytelling to their amazing 3D artists, there is a pivotal role in creating the foundation that these great characters are based off, and that is the concept art. Hey, I'm Frank, and in this video, we're going to talk about choosing the perfect concept art for your next portfolio piece. Before 3D, like many 3D artists, I used to draw when I was growing up. Only until I became a 3D artist did I realize how important that first stage of concepting was. Grassetti, 3D artist, and Dela, Longfish, concept artist, both are from Santa Monica Studio and worked on the God of War series. So I figured these guys know what they're talking about, and if it's my long-term goal to work somewhere like Santa Monica Studio, it would only make sense to work with one of the concept artists that works there and tailor my portfolio around what that studio's style looks like. So when I started looking for reference images for the concept art, I saw this podcast that Raf and Dela had done where Raf had actually done a lot of the 3D work on the Traces concept. So I hit up Dela and shot him a message to ask for his permission if I could use the concept. He promptly hit me back and said, that's fine, just credit me, and when you're done, I'll share it. So I thought, I've got everything I need to get going with this next piece, which includes the tick of approval from the concept artist, all the reference material I need, and also an amazing concept that not many people have seen, so it's really going to stand out when it comes to presenting it. So when I was gathering the reference for this, the YouTube video obviously was really great because it had all the stages from the sculpt all the way through to the texturing. But the principle still stands for any other concept, is to just find as much great reference as you can and then jumped over into ZBrush to get started. So the purpose of this video that I wanted to really focus on was the importance of a good concept and leaving it out of the issues that it is as a 3D artist to come up with a concept, because in the real world, in games and VFX, is that the 3D artist very rarely does the 3D work and the concept work. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception when it comes to taking someone else's concept as something that you're not doing, or you're cheating it, or you're halving it, the workload. But in reality, that's the way that the pipeline would go in the real world. So what I really wanted to do here was focus on taking one of the greatest video game concept artists, take one of his works that wasn't really that well known, and see how well I could achieve doing a 3D model based off that. Because in reality, that's what we're doing in our portfolios, is that we're trying to replicate what we would be doing in the real world, and not only the real world, but the companies that we want to be working for. So in this piece, I wanted to work with a concept artist with a piece that not many people knew, and trying to achieve the 3D version of that concept art the same way that it would work is if I was working in the studio. The other benefit to doing this is that you're alleviating yourself of a whole nother skill set that is not, if it's not meaning to be your skill set, there's no reason to be doing it. So I think the purpose of doing this as well was enabling me to focus on the thing that I want to be doing, which is creating a 3D character for my portfolio. Not exactly needing to go through the game engine pipeline, which if you haven't proven that in your portfolio existingly, I would recommend going through and retopologizing and doing it for you'll get your portfolio so that you can prove that you can do that. But for the purposes of this video, I just wanted a cool art piece. It did help as well having Raf's 3D work there to kind of cross-reference myself with. But the reason I sort of went down this road of choosing a concept that no one had really seen with a concept artist that everyone knew was that kind of was the best of both worlds. I've fallen victim to choosing a concept that you want to do, but everyone has seen. So doing Kratos, for example, it was fun at the time, and to me, I thought, look, I can showcase my skill set with this, and it's going to be great. But in reality, you're always going to be second best to the original, because it wasn't just one person that worked on that. There's a team of people that worked on it with an amazing concept artist. You're only doing yourself a disservice by choosing a concept that is that well known, that difficult. So you're always going to be sort of paddling upstream while you're doing it, because you're going to be always compared to the original. With the beauty of choosing a concept like this is that no one's really seen it. So the fact that people will probably be looking at it for the first time, it's going to be, no matter how good the work is, the work can be just as good as any other project. But when it's something that they haven't seen, there's less of a reference point for them to go off to say, hey, this doesn't really look like it, or I've seen one that looks better. That isn't to say that when you're doing 3D character art, there needs to be some sort of formula that you need to follow. But when you're trying to build a portfolio and you're trying to make as less amount of hurdles in front of you as you can, I think choosing a concept that's a little bit different, that's a really well polished concept, it just takes another factor out of the whole process for you and helps you focus on the art that you want to be working on. So moving on to the actual poly modeling and technical side of the video, I'm coming towards the end of the high poly modeling here. What I usually like to do is organize all of my subtools into folders, of which they're going to be my texture sets. So you can see all the list of them over there. Those folders are going to be these materials here. So that in Substance Painter, all of them are going to be under one texture set. All of the subtools that are in each of those folders, as you can see, there's multiple subtools. They're all on one UV tile in one folder and under one material. You can also have UDIMs where you spread them across multiple UV tiles, but I only had that for the mask. Jumping over into Substance Painter, you can see up there on the right, they are the same names that correspond with ZBrush, Maya, and now Substance Painter. So I've got a smooth pipeline across all three, so it's easy if I want to be making changes to any of the subtools, any of the UVs, across any of the programs, they're all labeled clearly. When it comes to texturing, a few people have hit me up asking about like my texturing process. I think the best thing to remember is that there's always a couple of tips when it comes to texturing, and I think one of the best ones is layering up different types of variation and breakup in your materials is going to give you, even if you start with a really basic material, layering up that breakup between the two of them, different heights, different reflectivity, is going to really give you a unique looking material, even when you start with something that's quite basic. Another good tip is to not have anything that's too perfect. Perfect materials don't really exist. Like perfect glass, perfect metal, all 100%. No damages on edge wear. Like even I didn't want to make this guy look like he had, been through the ringer, but at the same time, everything has a little bit of wear to it, like it had been worn in. I do think that really helps with materials. You can do a lot of that work in the high poly, like a lot of the wrinkles and a lot of the set-in stuff. But I think in the texturing phase, you can really emphasize that lived-in, weared, worn-in sort of look. It also actually helps you hide anything that could or might be wrong with the model. Moving over into Maya, we do the Arnold Apply Workflow to Maps workflow. It's really good because it's just you select the maps in the folder where you exported them from Substance Painter, and then it will spit them out all into exactly where they should be inside the Arnold standard surface shader. As you can see here, click apply, and then it will just generate that tree for you. This is my basic lighting setup. I do have an HDRI as well, but it's basically just a 3-point lighting setup with an HDRI for a bit of film. These here are some smoke planes that I just put some PNGs on, and then the background, I actually used a backplate for that as well, and then edited the renders over in Photoshop. So this was a big part of the video for me because I really wanted to emphasize the importance of posting your renders, because I feel like the render when it came out does look a bit flat, and there's a lot of you can do. That's why post exists. The first thing that I did there was film grain. You can see it just takes the edge off a lot of the edges there, and it gives a lot of realism to the render. These two passes I've got here are chromatic aberration. So a blue and a green pass. All I've done is duplicate the render, and then whatever the pass is, so green for example, I take the red and the blue out of it, and then with the blue I go to the levels, I take the green out of it to 0, and then the red out of it to 0. So then I've got two passes, green and blue. I set them both to lighten. That's what they look like normal. Set them both to lighten, and then when you just offset them, you'll see what happens here. See how it has that little ring around the left of it? So I move the blue one to the left and the green one to the right, and it almost has like that 3D glasses sort of look to it, which is a really nice like sci-fi lookup table vibe to it, which there are, filters that you can put on over the top, but you have way more control doing it yourself here in Photoshop. Just moving on to the other parts of the image, I like to drive where the focus is by using vignettes and gradients. So as you can see, I just blocked out the side and the bottom there. This is a cool little design detail I did just for a bit of fun with the post. And then I've also put in some dust speckles and some smoke down the bottom there as well. So some important hue and contrast adjustments of the face. So I actually did quite a few adjustments here. Did a little simple S-curve there. It would really pop out the depth of the face, and then cranking the exposure on the eyes. And you can see there's a lot more intent in the character, and there's a lot more focus being drawn to the face and the eyes, which is exactly what I wanted. As well as some simple exposure adjustments there on the sleeves. And then all of this is possible with the ID mask. So I use that ID mask to select different regions. And after all that, these are the final renders. Thanks for watching the video and for making it all the way through to the end. Hopefully you can take something from this as a 3D artist and take it into your next portfolio piece. If this sort of content is your thing, I've got an amazing video coming out at the end of this week with Jared Chavez. He's an awesome 3D artist that is sort of a wizard when it comes to picking concept art and then presenting it really well. So make sure you hit subscribe not to miss that at the end of the week. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.